Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out People of Reddit. Story 1. Don't make me a bridesmaid, okay? Hello. So this is going to sound very petty, and I am rarely ever so. Edit, TL, DR on the bottom. Backstory, all about my cousin, let's call Cindy. Cindy's mom, let's call her Aunt Sunshine for irony purposes, is a competitive old bat. She had 2 kids, and her oldest was always pitted against one of my other, older best cousin. From what I hear, I wasn't born yet. Then my dad got married, had me, and apparently I was the darling baby of the cousins. I was the first kid in like 15 years in the family, so I was the baby. Aunt Sunshine couldn't stand for that, so while her kids were teenagers, she had baby number 3 1 year after I was born. Was it deliberate? An accident? Who can say? All I know is, Cindy and I were the only 2 cousins close in age, so I wanted to be her BFF. But we can't have nice things. It took me years to realize, because as a kid you don't see these things, but everything was a subtle competition. One example of many, we both were flower girls at a wedding. When I arrived, I was dressed in a cute little outfit, age appropriate. Cindy arrived dressed as a mini bride, veil and all, and full makeup. She was 5. Her mom wanted to make sure she outshined me. When I got my MBA, instead of congratulations from her, when she saw me at my grandma's memorial, she sneered and said loudly maybe she'll get her doctorate, for all there to hear. No congrats, no hey, you must have worked hard for that. No, just one-upmanship. She still hasn't gotten around to that yet. At her wedding, I said congrats. She bitterly responded, why didn't you invite me to swim in your pool? WTF? Yes, my parents had a pool, yes. But every time my mom called her mom to invite them, Aunt Sunshine would always say she was busy with her, at the time, boyfriend. My dad said my Cindy aunt were always jealous of me because I was tall. For reference, I am 5 feet 10 inches, and they are short. Again, I never saw it as a kid. Well, she married a tall man, good for her, and was bragging to me how her daughter was tall for her age. Good for you? None of this ever bothered me. They are just doing their thing, fine. Haters gonna hate. Main story, but weddings. Edit to add, in my culture usually it is expected to make unmarried cousins your bridesmaids. I always wanted to be one. I was the only close in age to her, and unmarried. She didn't choose me. She chose only her friends. Edit to add, this was directly flouting cultural custom. Fine. Cool. Your wedding, that's fine. But I knew what my petty revenge would be. People inform me how they want to be treated by how they treat me. I was getting married in 2018. She had a 2-year-old. This is how sneaky they were. Both her and her texted my best cousin, one mentioned above, that they'd be honored to have Cindy's daughter as a flower girl. Hey! Thinking it coming from my best cousin would somehow influence me. I texted back politely as I could, unfortunately that role has been filled but someone else. I honestly am not giving revenge on the daughter. She was 2 at the time, she probably could care less, much less remember. But my cousin, Cindy? I could tell it burned her. Why? When another younger cousin was set to get married in 2020, Cindy didn't mess around. She got cozy with her and later informed me haughty that her daughter would be a flower girl at that wedding. My response? That's great, she is older now, good for her. That caught her and her husband, no doubt poisoned opinion of me from her, by surprise at my graciousness. Guess what happened at 2020? Pandemic, baby. She posted sad videos of her daughter practicing being a flower girl at their backyard. It was pathetic. Well, the wedding finally happened and Cindy got her magical dream of having her daughter as a flower girl. But I still relish telling her no. And had she made me a bridesmaid, I would have happily made her daughter a flower girl. Dr. Don't make me a bridesmaid? I don't make your daughter my flower girl. Story 2. Got a high school bully suspended. Not sure if I've ever told this story, but I just thought of it. Had a kid in one of my classes who thought he was a big shot. Was always talking smack about other people. One day, he was going off about my brother, but he didn't know that he was my brother. I was the quiet kid in class, but I turned around and said, "Wanna shut the fuck up about my brother?" And everyone went silent. I think he had a weird respect for me. I'm sure he talked about me when I wasn't around, but he never bothered me. However, he also wasn't super nice to someone I ended up later dating. Flash forward a few months. My friend oversaw in another class that he'd cut a solid chunk out of one of his textbooks to make a pocket for weed. He was selling it. She asked me what she should do. I wasn't the tattletale type, but I was still not pleased with him for what he'd said about my brother and my partner, so I told her she should report him. And she did. He was arrested and suspended but was allowed to come back to school after a little while. Sorry bro, I'm sure you grew up to be a perfectly fine human. Most of us do. Edits as I am reading the comments. I was 16 when this happened. This is not something I would do now and not something I'm necessarily proud of. I was also a hormonal teenager. From what I can gather via social media, his life turned out okay. Maybe it was better for him in the long run and rerouted him from other bad decisions. To my knowledge, he never found out that it was my friend who reported him or me who encouraged it. I'm female. Interested how you all seem to have assumed that I'm a guy. I don't think me taking a swing at a dude who's bigger than me would have gone how you think it would. I grew up in a town that is 98% white and we were told that weed is dangerous and leads to addiction, so yeah, at the time, it was a big deal to me because that's what I'd been taught. I no longer live in that town and I'm 30 years old. I'm in favor of legalization for weed. Story 3. Bucket Woman v My Underwear, again, an accidental petty revenge. Backstory: I live next door to a house that is haunted by the Bucket Woman, aka Buckety. Named because my fian, Martin, says it's like living next door to Hyacinth Bucket. She has decided views about interior design, gardening, rubbish bins and underwear on washing lines, amongst other things. She rarely speaks to us these days, but does like to either listen at the fence, or watch us from her front yard. So on the weekend, Martin and I were in the front garden with our youngest, Vampira, 1F. Martin was doing some weeding, and checking his seaweed art. Vampy and I did some walking practice, then she helped with his planting. All of this was under Buckety's watchful eye, as she ostentatiously held her nose and flapped her other hand in a kind of pu gesture. Some people just don't appreciate great art. Because it was a warm day, and because I am a cougar, I was wearing a tank top and a sports bra. Which is how a blowfly managed to fly down my cleavage and start buzzing around inside my bra. If anyone is wondering how this happened, remember I am a mum in my 40s, and I was dressed in old clothes for working in the garden. Things were sagging a bit. Usually I'm pretty good at staying calm, but nothing in any training had prepared me for the horrible feeling of having a fly trapped inside my bra, while in full view of the street in general, and Buckety in particular. I turned my back on the street and started grabbing at my clothes, trying to get the fly out without, 1. stripping off my top in the front garden, or, 2. squashing the fly, because who wants fly guts in there? I heard Martin asking, "What's wrong?" while shielding Vampy. He said afterwards he thought I'd been stung by a bee. That's when I lost it a bit, and shrieked so loud Buckety could hear. There's a fly in my bra. It's buzzing around my tie-its. The problem with being in a relationship with a younger man, a week and a half, is there no bloody use in a crisis. My toy boy lover, or liver as autocorrect insists on calling him, collapsed into laughter. Relieved laughter, Martin says. But as Bucket Woman repellents go, it was crude but effective. I heard a sound that managed to be both a horrified gasp and a strangled cry at the same time, while simultaneously clutching her pearls. Then she went inside and I heard 2 doors being banged shut, the second one rather firmly. I don't know if Buckety reached her fainting couch or her smelling salts in time, and I don't really care. Because the fly escaped and I was enjoying the feeling of absolute relief that came from not having a big, ugly blowy buzzing around my boobs. The whole thing probably only took seconds, but it felt like those seconds went on forever. The best part came on Monday. I went out to collect the junk mail, Buckety was in her front garden, and all I had to do was adjust the neckline on my shirt and she disappeared. So there you have it, my accidental petty revenge on Buckety, who now knows for sure that I have both underwear and the requisite body parts and will mention both in mixed company. Remember folks, when life hands you lemons, make a trebuchet to fling them back, and when a fly gets in your clothing while your sticky beak neighbor is watching, shout tits. Story 4. Friend's college roommate talks loudly on speakerphone, we give her a taste of her own medicine. Pretty dumb and simple. My friend was living at her college in freshman dorms. She was in one of those dorms that's like a square box, 110x10 feet room for 2 girls and a bathroom shared by 2 rooms. Her roommate was one of those roommates from hell who believes she's the only one who exists. I can name a dozen things she does but I wanna keep this relatively short. One of the most annoying things she did was call her boyfriend on speakerphone at any given time and talk loudly about whatever. My friend told her to stop a number of times and she didn't. Finally I was like 2 can play at this game. Roommate was on the phone with her boyfriend and my friend called me. I am not known to be a wonderful singer but by God if this wasn't the best time to bust out It's a Small World as loud as I can there never would be. Story 5. Retail Revenge. This is a pretty minuscule one. Anywho, during the height of COVID I was working at Lowe's in their lumber department. It was crazy busy in the entire store. We're talking double the sales from the previous year with a quarter of the staff. I was heading back from lunch down one of the aisles and hear wood crashing around, not too uncommon until I glance over and see the guy is just throwing lumber off the cart onto the ground. The cart was my cart I was using for an order. Cue my rage, I wait until the guy loads up his cart and walks away to do some more shopping. I quickly grab his cart and take it to the receiving area. Then hang around long enough to hear him start asking people where it was and looking up and down all the aisles. Still makes me laugh. Story 6. Sure be a heartless narcissistic leech on my friend's life but I'm taking your batteries in the divorce. Venting from the shit show of a day I had yesterday. TW, drugs, emotional abuse and manipulation in a romantic relationship, potential DV, and similar topics. So I, 21NB, have a friend group of 3 from high school, Liz, Anna, and Maria, 21FS. Liz has been in a relationship since she was 17 with Jake, 22M, and he was also in our graduating class. We were all in a much larger and horribly toxic friend group until COVID hit in our senior year and we all cut out most of them to varying degrees at that point. Liz had her share of baby fat and weight issues until she decided to commit to weight loss in sophomore year, and by spring break of our junior year she had slimmed down a lot, and was finally feeling confident about her body. She's always been super quiet, sometimes to an unsettling degree, but she is the sweetest, kindest, most caring and generous person I knew, and will always cling to positive judgments about people, often to a fault. She's a great person and friend, and I love her to death. She'd also never dated anyone before because she was so quiet and felt nobody was ever interested in her. But on spring break during our junior year, she and most of the toxic friend group went on a trip to a piece of land upstate. There was a jacuzzi, and this was one of the rare times Liz had been around men in a swimsuit. When she got back, she was dating Jake. Prior to this, she'd agreed with us that Jake was a little weird and hard to talk to because he's the type of guy that believes it's his way or the highway straight to hell. But here they are, dating. I went along with it, but was wary from the get-go. For their first date, he made her egg salad and got her too high on his crazy personal strain of weed he'd invented, and then dropped her off for a piercing appointment and stranded her alone there, and she had to call our friend Anna to pick her up. She was fine with this, but Anna, Maria and I started giving each other the side eye. A few weeks later, Anna heard from another friend that Jake had told him that he'd never liked Liz until he saw her in the jacuzzi. Cue stronger side eyes. Then for the next few years, every so often Anna would get stories from Liz that really worried us. Liz is a great cook and now does it professionally, so Jake took full advantage of that, because all he could cook was burnt scrambled eggs. When he moved in with a friend after graduation, he never ever bought anything besides weed and never cleaned the house. So, Liz did. When Liz got a job with more hours and stopped cleaning as often, Jake would let his apartment go to shit, to the point that his roommate broke the lease after about a year and moved out. Jake was always mean and would never acquiesce on anything, for anyone, including Liz. But don't you know it, they moved into a house together. Liz was the one to purchase almost everything in and for the house, including food and supplies for their cat and the 2 cats they were housing for a friend. Anything Jake got was either stolen, weed, or something Liz was not allowed to even touch. They lived together for about a year. Well, yesterday morning I got a call from Anna asking if I could help move Liz into a new apartment by herself before Jake got home from work, because he'd been getting increasingly mean, manipulative, verbally abusive, slamming doors and throwing things more often, etc. And Anna and her BF finally convinced Liz that it'd be safer for her to leave. So I picked up some moving boxes and then spent the next 7 hours packing and transporting her stuff, which was, mind you, basically the entire house and almost all of the furniture. Jake showed up early, around hour 5, and we convinced Liz to leave before he could start anything. The entire time he sat accusing Liz of stealing things that were already gone, and that she'd paid for, and taking things into his bedroom so we didn't pack them. He even went into one of the vans and dug through a dirty laundry hamper to take all of the dish towels and rags. When he showed up we called in a ton more people, including about 4 sets of parents and 6 of our friends from high school. It all got done without police called. Liz has blocked him, and she's safe and sound in probably the sickest apartment in the area. Here's the petty part, when Liz was there and packing up her toiletries in the bathroom, I convinced her that it was wholly within her rights to take the shower curtain and all the rings, because it was, as well as all of the food and dishes, that Jake hadn't already thrown and broken. She took everything but the shitty beer in the fridge. While she was doing that, I went into the living room and took all of the batteries out of every remote I could find. He'd left his computer mouse in the living room too, so I took that battery as well as the dongle that connected it to his computer. I also dumped out as much of his dandruff shampoo as I could. Knowing him, he'll be too lazy, high on weed, or tweaked out because of his new cocaine habit, to go out and buy new batteries or a mouse to play games or watch anything, so hopefully his extensive feminist and communist literature collection is enough to keep his ass entertained. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.